Hi. So, as you know, I normally just write, but given what's happened in the last day or so, I think it's time for you to actually see my face and hear me talk. There's something we need to discuss, and that is preparedness. In the prepper community, there's something that we call EDC, which means everyday carry. Now, the purpose of everyday carry is to be prepared for something that you might run into on a daily basis. So we're not really thinking about things like, I don't know, combat, World War III, what if a nuclear bomb goes off? Those are different. Those are bug out kits. And that's a completely different conversation. But for what we're talking about today, we're talking about what should you have with you every single day when you leave your home. Now, there are a lot of people out there who look at the things that hit the market and they think, ooh, I gotta have this, I gotta have that, and I gotta have the other. And they end up having so much that they never actually take it with them. So the goal here is to minimize the things that you need. Now, if you are, say, going to a shooting range or going into combat, you should have a pretty significant medical kit, right? I mean, you should have at least this. This is a blowout kit. Now, I know you're thinking, hey, Jimmy, why don't you have that in a really cool little container with, you know, the Red Cross symbol on it and all that? It's not really a good idea to keep everything hidden. This Ziploc bag makes it so easy for anybody at the scene to find what they need that there's no questions and no problems. If you're looking at, you know, somebody laying on the ground who has been, you know, accidentally shot and is bleeding everywhere, you're not going to open up the thing and try and keep it really organized and all that. You're going to dump that crap all out all over the ground and dig for what you need, right? So the first thing you need to do is make it all visible. Now, under normal circumstances, you're not going to be carrying a 6-pound bag full of stuff. You're going to want something a little bit smaller, right? The minimum you would need for combat is something closer to this. Now, this guy right here's got a tourniquet, scissors, a Israeli bandage, and some ADD pads to control the bleeding. Even that, I mean, that's a pretty good sized chunk, right? So that's not something that would work for you either, not for everyday carry, right? So when you look at what we got here, let's see if we can peel this apart with one hand because I'm holding the phone, right? The first thing everybody on the earth wants to have is a tourniquet, cat tourniquet. These things are awesome. They're really good for stopping bleeding. They're even better for letting it out slowly because every so often you have to release the blood, otherwise you're gonna kill the limb that it's wrapped around. So these things are wonderful. If you can carry one with you, by all means do it. But it's a little bit big, a little bit bulky. So if you were to carry one thing, it's probably not gonna be this. I mean, most of these shootings involve people who are shooting, you know, at center mass. And you're hardly gonna put one of these around someone's chest, right? Or around their abdomen. So, I mean, this is for limbs, and there's gonna be some limb damage, but let's be real. This can be replaced. Another thing that you might wanna have with you are chest seals. Now, I'm not a big fan of the market chest seals. I don't think they do a very good job of releasing the air without clogging up. A lot of them are vented, and those vents get filled with clotted blood really quickly. I don't think that's gonna work so well. So what I like to use are these guys right here. See this Duoderm? Sticks to the skin very well, and you can take the plastic covering, cut it down to size, and use that for your vent. So if you cut your plastic down to fit inside here, place it over the opening, and have one edge of it open, then it will work as a vent for an open chest wound. A sucking chest wound. So what a sucking chest wound is if a bullet goes through your chest, there will be, it'll put a hole right through your lungs. So air will be able to come in and out through there. In that case, blood will be bubbling and foaming and all that out of the opening. So you're gonna wanna stop that. You're gonna wanna stop that air from escaping. You need that air to pressurize into the body and actually do what it's supposed to do. So if you put a valve of sorts over that opening that lets blood out but holds it tight when they're sucking in air, it actually helps them process that oxygen, and it will buy them a little bit extra time. And that's what this is really about. We're not here to do surgery. We're not here to, you know, put people back together, put sutures in them, all that stuff. That's not what you're doing. If you're in this kind of a mass shooting event and everything is passed by and there's people on the ground bleeding, they have minutes for you to do something about it. And more to the point, if it's you as the victim, somebody else has minutes to deal with you. If you're carrying the things they need, then they can help you and move on to the next person and help them. But if you're not carrying what they need, then they're pretty much going to be stuck with using what they have on you and then watching everybody else bleed to death. That's not a good way to be. So back to the story. If we were to use these in our kit, they are small, thin, they don't weigh anything. It's worth wrapping it around whatever you have. So, you know, whatever kind of chest seal you want to come up with, it's probably not a bad thing to have. Other than that, the ABD pads are good. They really do stop the bleeding. They're heavy, they're thick, they're very, very bulky. So something like this is going to take up a lot of space. Probably not worth carrying along with you. A lot of people go to the Israeli bandage. The Israeli bandage is good for a lot of things. It will actually do what a tourniquet does. It'll actually do what the chest seal does if you use it right. So this one bandage, which was, you know, tried and true back in the Vietnam days, is actually a reasonable thing to carry. It doesn't take up that much space. It'll fit right into your pocket. And it'll do everything you need to do in that sort of a situation. Again, understanding the goal here is not to repair people. It is to stabilize them, to keep the blood in them long enough for the people who actually know what they're doing to come along and save their life. So if I'm going to suggest anything, I'm going to suggest either something like this or a handkerchief or just some gauze, something to stop bleeding, because really the point here is to plug the holes, keep the blood in. You know, in the battlefields, most lives are lost not from the initial wound, but from bleeding out. And bleeding out happens quickly. The more you can do to slow it down, the better off you are. So I think you have a pretty good understanding of the medical side of it. Now, another thing that people are always talking about are their guns and their ammo and all that. And there's a lot to be discussed there. And I'll probably do a video on that at some point if this one actually gets any traction. But one thing that I think has been left in the pages of history: mace, pepper spray, these kind of things. Look, this guy that came into this store was not expecting any opposition whatsoever. So if you were to, at minimum, spray down the aisle you're in with this mace, it would have been really uncomfortable for him. I mean, he would have probably decided to choose a different aisle, which could have very much saved your life. That's something to consider. Another thing that you're going to want to have, a lot of people want to bring scissors in their medical kit. Yeah, it's got a lot of purposes. I mean, if you're in Walmart and something like this happens, scissors are going to help you because there's all the medical supplies you need are there. It's Walmart. I mean, there are medical kits everywhere. They have all kinds of cool stuff, right? So if you're in the camping section or in the prescription area, you can do what you need to do with what's on the shelves. And having something like this will help you get into the packages. It will help you get into the clothing that you have to deal with the person who's lying in front of you bleeding out. And you'll be able to cut up whatever you need to make bandages. Again, we're not worried so much about being clean as we are worried about stopping the blood. So they'll clean the wounds out when they get them to surgery. So that's something that a lot of people carry. At minimum, I mean at the absolute minimum, everyone should have a pocket knife. Those scissors are a bit bulky, a little bit ugly. You're gonna feel silly walking around with these in your pocket. This little guy, it's tiny. It has a little blade on it, but you know what? It will do the job. It'll cut into the clothing and it will cut open whatever you need to cut open. It'll do everything you need it to do in that kind of a scenario. Now, we're not talking about earthquakes and we're not talking about nuclear bombs here. We're talking about active shooters. We're talking about situations that actually happen in random places all over the US at any given time. So this would be the thing to have, as would any of the other items that I've shown you, but just remember, the things that you bulk up on, you leave behind. You need to think small, light, easy to carry, and hard to forget. If you haven't got it with you, you haven't got it. So if you enjoy this video and you think this is something I should keep doing, let me know. Post something, give me some answers, tell me what you think. If you think I'm crazy, you're right, but tell me. Thanks a lot for listening.